All right, welcome everyone to Lean On Navy. Welcome back. We took a short break over the month of December, and then in January, we had a chance to do it live for those of you that were able to join us as part of the Surface Navy Association and Sea Service Leadership Association. We did a live panel then. So for some of you, this might be your first time doing this, and so welcome. It's great to have you. I'm going to share with you a little bit about what Lean On Navy is all about and what we do and how this works. So just a quick introduction here. We started with a little bit of Lean On Me song that kind of gets you going and reminds us that, you know, you're doing something different. This is not like every other Zoom call that you've been on. I hope it seems a little bit different. So we played a song to begin with to kind of get us focused on stepping off the treadmill of our day-to-day work and just being with friends. And we're here for two reasons. One is professional development, and the second is connection. So thanks for stepping off the treadmill of your busy days for that reason. Today's topic is toxic leaders, how to thrive in spite of them. I think you will not be disappointed. There's a really meaty topic, but in the end, very positive. So I'm really looking forward to Admiral Harris's, how he guides us through this topic. It is interactive. So ask you to just be involved as best you can and do your best to kind of share and listen. And the rules that we have are basically simple, that you would log off if this time is no good for you, and then catch the recording later. So it's pretty simple. You know, we're here to learn from each other, and we will go into breakout rooms. So I do have a quick agenda that I've put together here. It's there's the agenda. So the agenda, a couple minutes where we're kicking off what Lean In is, what Lean On is. And we'll do some quick polls, and then introduce the topic and then and the guest mentor, Admiral Harris. And then we'll go on mute for the guest presentation. And then we'll go into small group breakouts. You'll have about 10 minutes, and there will be about 3 or 4 people per room. And then I'll ask you to come back and I'll moderate the sharing. And then we end right on the hour, so that if you do want to stay for the full hour, I hope you can stay. You can log off at that point. I'll turn the mic back over to the Admiral to give us any wrap-ups. And then those who want to stay, just stay. Usually for up to a half an hour, people still want to share. So that's what we call the after party. So that's what Lean On Navy is all about. So with that, I'd like to ask you to just write in the chat, just so everyone can kind of see, like, what city are you in? Just kind of get it, our sense, just to type in what city we're in, just to give a sense where we all are. See, we've coming in from San Francisco, from Alexandria, from Philly, San Diego, Nashville. Looks like we're all across the globe, the United States here. I don't see any foreign or out of the country people showing on today so far. Oh, wait, Okemos, oh, there we go. Oh, we got God's country and okay, Admiral Harris. Boston, my alma mater, Boston University, great. Jean Marie, the Pentagon, all right. Honolulu, all right, Amber, great, of course. So Admiral Richardson, good to see you logging on there as Briny Deep. Good to see you, sir. All right, so we see we're coming in across. And the next question I'd like to ask you, if you could just maybe give me your billet or your profession. This is a professional development workshop, so always good for us to sort of see what profession perspective we're bringing. So I'm going to type in SWO because I'm a SWO. I'm also going to type in nuke because I'm a nuke. That's what I'm going to put. You can put anything, whether it's your current billet, whether it's your rank, if that's what's your mindset today when you're thinking about professional development and you're thinking about toxic leaders and yourself as a leader. What perspective are you bringing? So we got psychologist, Admiral Adams talking about being a retired admiral, SWO, active mentor for the Military Women's Memorial Ambassador, fantastic. Admiral Korcher, who is the actual Navy Surface Warfare Officer, now education and training. So lots of great professions here that are the perspectives we're sharing. And also this gives you a chance, the listener, to kind of look around the room, right? Almost like if we were in person, checking name tags, right? So feel free to scroll through this throughout the presentation, or if there's someone you want to reach out to later, I'm happy to help connect you. If there's a person or a title that you think would be helpful to you, this is all about connection. So thanks everyone for sharing a little bit about where you're coming from. Actually I have two more kickoff questions. It's kind of a yes, no. just have you ever worked in a toxic leadership environment? So I'm just going to give this quick poll, just yeses and nos. Just kind of get a sense of who came today. Okay, I have not seen any no's yet. So for those who are just listening to this later on, maybe they got their earbuds in, maybe you put me on fast speed and you're listening at the 1.2, 1.5. I'll try to speak slow if you put me on 1.8. So Admiral Harris says, LOL, he had 6 tours in DC. So, okay. Okay, so since we all had the same answer, I'm going to go with my last question, which I wasn't sure I was going to ask because it's a little bit edgy. Have you ever been accused of being a toxic leader yourself? Okay, now, so if someone put yes to the last question, we're going to kind of pause. Okay, so then you maybe kind of know that we have a new question on the agenda here. So I haven't seen any yet. Oh, I've seen one yes. Okay, I'm going to add to that. I'm going to add YES there. That was not something I'm proud of. It's tough to even talk about, but I was XO of Arlington, and certainly hard to read command climate surveys. I will not say that's easy. So that's part of the perspective we're going to bring here today too. So Admiral Harris writes, absolutely, but my God, children's opinion don't count. Ooh, can't wait to hear more about that. Okay. So overall, Amber says not overall, but been called out during specific circumstances. Yes. Okay. Thanks, Amber, for sharing that. So I'm getting some, not that I was told, maybe we don't know, maybe not to my face. Someone, Lori says that. Good to see you, Lori. Aaron, good to see you. I just noticed you on there. Good to see you, Aaron. Sorry, things are popping up. Okay. So just a little bit edgier of a question. And with that, we're at 7 minutes. I've gone on a little bit too long. So I'm going to introduce to you Admiral Harris. And as I introduce him, I'm also going to play a video that he teed up for me to play. So I'm going to see if I can multitask. I am missing Vic Reeve, my normal assistant, who makes this super easy for me. So today's my Vic Reeve appreciation moment because I'm doing this alone. But I'm going to play a video that is going to introduce the topic. And while I'm doing that, I'm also going to introduce our guest speaker. So Admiral Harris is the president of NNOA. He corrected me. It's not NOAA. That is obviously a very different organization. So NNOA is for the advancement of African-American or officers who are minority officers. And let's see if I can exit here, escape full screen. Here we go. Yes. Okay. And a surface warfare officer. So I'm going to not read his whole bio. I have it here, but we're going to let you look it up later so that we can just, in the interest of time, listen to how he's teed up for us, performance versus trust. So playing this short video.
How do you pick like the guys that go on SEAL Team 6, right? Because they're the best. And they drew a graph for me. And on one side, they wrote the word performance. And on the other side, they wrote the word trust. The way they define the terms is performance on the battlefield and performance off the battlefield. So this is your skills. Did you make your quarterly earnings, however you want to translate it, right? Performance, it's traditional. This is, how are you off the battlefield? What kind of person are you? The way they put it is, I may trust you with my life, but do I trust you with my money and my wife? This is what they told me. Nobody wants of course, everybody wants this person, the high performer of high trust. What they learned is that this person, the high performer of low trust, is a toxic leader and a toxic team member. And they would rather have a medium performer of high trust, sometimes even a low performer of high trust, it's a relative scale, over this person. This is the highest performing organization on the planet, and this person is more important than this person. And the problem in business is we have lopsided metrics. We have 1,000,001 metrics to measure someone's performance and negligible to no metrics to measure someone's trustworthiness. And so what we end up doing is promoting or bonusing toxicity in our businesses, which is bad for the long game because it eventually destroys the whole organization. The irony is it's unbelievably easy to find these people. Go to any team and say, who's the asshole? And they'll... they will all point to the same person. Equally, if you go to any team and say, who do you trust more than anybody else? Who's always got your back? And when the chips are down, they will be there with you. They will also all point to the same person. It's the best gifted natural leader who's creating an environment for everybody else to succeed. And they may not be your most individual highest performer, but that person, you better keep them on your team.
All right. With that, I turn over to Admiral Harris.
And hey, thank you so much, Emily. I really appreciate your letting me spend a little time with the group here. I love the collaboration that we're beginning to build between SSLA, Lean On, NNOA, ANSO, and other organizations like the Navy League. Because I mean, our whole goal is to try to get better faster, right? And to be the most diverse, the most inclusive, and the best prepared sea service and Navy in particular possible. I see a lot of great shipmates. I won't go down through all of them, but I appreciate all of you for taking time to come on. I'm gonna start sharing my screen here, and please let me know if you do not see the screen clearly. Let's set things straight. If you're looking for an imperfect leader, I am their king. Never have been perfect, never will be perfect. Tried the best I can, failed sometimes, succeeded sometimes. And terms like toxic leadership are bandied about widely and greatly and misunderstood. Sometimes they're just because somebody had a bad day and they'll just say, well, so-and-so's a toxic leader, because we know it'll make them feel bad. But we all can recognize when we're in that type of environment. And we all know that it's nothing new, that it has crossed the centuries. It has crossed the genders, it's crossed the civilizations, time immemorial. Here are some, you can ask Cino Richardson, hey, has Sinclair Harris ever had an original thought? Of course not. He'll tell you. All right. And so, but I can Google like the best of them. And if you Google toxic leaders in history, this is whose faces come up. And many, many, many more. But just again, to tell you, it comes across time, history, color, what have you. Now, I love Turner Classic Movies. I love old movies. And I love telling stories through movies. So let's think about what's your favorite movie, and I'm going to ask you to put it in chat. And Emily, you can just speak up when they give them to you. What are some of your favorite movies that depict a toxic environment? Everybody here is a sailor of some sort. Should recognize one in upper left-hand corner. Charles Lawton, the epitome of what Captain Bligh was in Mutiny on the Bounty. Now, was that a toxic environment? Competent captain? Like nobody's business. Toxic leader? I would say yes. Everything was about him. He beat his people down for no good, really good reason, and was selfish, both in small and large. Lower right-hand corner. Who remembers that movie? Speak up. Come on, anybody.
Yeah,
12
take yourself off. Yeah, people can take themselves off mute if they want to. Yeah.
12 o'clock high. 12 o'clock high. And this was a depiction of a bomber squadron that was failing in its mission. And they took out the leader who everybody liked, that guy who was kind of in the middle of the little thing, the little vignette we just showed you from LinkedIn, and put in a guy who was also a nice guy, but he put on his bad guy, his tough guy hat, and created a very tough and, in some people's minds, toxic environment. He was name calling. He put all the bad people with the worst wing or squadron commander and all that. And finally, he just blew up himself. He was so intense. And then the one in the upper right-hand corner, great movie, Glenry Ross. Alec Baldwin talking to a bunch of real estate agents about how to close deals. And if they don't close deals, they're losers. And winners, losers don't get dinner or don't get this and all that. I mean, great movie, Glenn Ross. So what are some of the lists that came up of favorite toxic movies?
So here I see The King and Mutiny. I see A Few Good Men. I see Crimson Tide, Gladiator, Devil Wears Prada, Tombstone, Mr. Roberts.
Okay, who says Devil Wears Prada?
Jessica Brea.
Jessica, you win the prize. What is the prize? A good shake of the hand. But you were right. This was the #1 best movie to depict a toxic environment. Nothing else comes close. Nothing. I mean, her organization, all about her, beat him down. Just horrible person. Very proficient. Upper left-hand corner. Trust. I don't know anybody that trusted her in that fantastic movie. So you can learn a lot from watching through movies. So, as I mentioned before, toxic leadership, it's nothing new. It's been around for a while. How do you recognize it? And then how do you deal with it? How do you thrive through it? So I went, again, you Google, and you'll get over 3 million results when you look up books on toxic leadership. One of the best ones is this one here by Mr. Lippman, Lure of Toxic Leaders. And while we follow destructive bosses, hey, again, I did 6 tours in the Pentagon. I did 6 tours in Washington. I did 5 in the Pentagon. I did 3 on the Navy staff and 2 on the Joint staff. And I'm not going to name names. And none of the people that I'm thinking about are on this screen from what I can see so far. But I had some interesting leaders.
You can say it. It's okay. It's a trusting environment. I'm right here.
And John Richardson was not one of those toxic leaders. I'm going to say that out loud. But you know who I'm talking about. And you know the types of folks. It's just, maybe it's part of the environment. Because at that time, especially growing up, I came in the Navy in 1981, and especially in surface warfare, we prided ourselves in a lot of ways in how toxic we could be, right? And how tough-minded we could be. I can be a worse rat bastard than this guy over here. We took pride in that in a lot of ways. And I think over time it changed, and it wasn't universal with everybody, but it's very, very common. It's not unique, as the movies indicated, and our discussion will go on, to any organization, any firm, any military service, any race, any gender, any sex or orientation. Everybody can be a toxic leader or not. So #1, everybody should calm down because it's nothing new. #2, now how do you recognize it? What are some of the traits of toxic leaders? Now I stole this from the Army. Again, you can ask Admiral Richardson. Never had a real thought in my life. I can Google with the best of them. And toxic leaders aren't simply those who yell and make people do something they don't want to do. That's called a damage control assistant. Okay, that's called your coach on the football field or field hockey field. That's called your band. I had a band director in junior high school in the DC Youth Orchestra, and he would just get on the nerves of every single performer and get them to the point where they were so nervous, the young kid would drop their instrument. And then he'd yell at them in front of everybody else, "Can't play it, break it up." That was we were a great band, but he was a horrible person to work with. But there are people that make you do hard things that are not toxic leaders. And in the Navy, in the sea services, in the military, that's kind of important because war, being at sea, is a tough job. Now, the picture in front of you, who can tell me who that is? Come off mute and just say it.
It's from McHale's Navy, but I am ashamed to say I can't remember the character's name.
Wallace Burton Binghamton, the captain of Taratupa, the PT base in the South Pacific, for the short running, but in my view, famously funny TV. He portrayed that toxic, selfish, glib, intemperate, inept leader and corrupt in many, many ways, better than I think anybody else has in TV. And while I've not seen anybody in my entire Navy career or even in my commercial career now who has brought all this together like him, you could see pieces of him in people across the leadership spectrum. Okay. And these are just some of the basic traits of a toxic leader, or how you can recognize when you're in that environment. And again, a lot of people will have, you'll see that in a lot of people in different ways. So getting to the end, because this is a short presentation so we can really get to the discussion, hopefully. How do you get through it? Well, again, not being one of original thought, I go out and ask my mentors of the past and Google. And one of them is a wonderful person, Cynthia Miller. She retired as a Navy captain, then went on to be Chief Human Resources at NSA. She's retired now, longtime member of the National Naval Officers Association, and one of my senior advisors. And I said, Cynthia, being an HR person both in the Navy and out, you certainly have seen toxic and had to work through toxic leader. And I said, what do you think? What advice would you give to the group we were talking to? And this was her list. And I think it's an excellent one, again, to put in your back pocket. How do you thrive? Back to our subject, in a toxic leader environment. Learn to be confident. Learn to be confident in what you're doing. You do it through practice, through study, through working with tough leaders who train you to be ready. Toughness, I think, was one of the main thrusts during your administration. So, Brian did give me a thumbs up. He liked toughness. Yeah. Stellar performance. Nothing beats success like success. Okay. Winning matters. That's why being a Washington Commanders fan is so hard. Okay. Having an environment where people can talk to each other and I used to tell the folks working with me, I said, look, hey, lawyer person, supply and comptroller person, and a PAO person, none of you all are paid to tell me what I want to hear. You're paid to tell me what I don't want to hear. And you're also paid to give me ideas of what I should do, say, or spend money on. But if I make a decision that goes counter, hey, look, that's my decision, but you're paid at least to tell me that thing. Having that open dialogue where people can communicate. Now you can utilize, a number of protections that are already set up in our workplace. We've got hotlines, EEO, all sorts of, and I think over my time in the Navy, we have matured in our way of resolving things at the lowest level and in the most positive way. But sometimes they had to keep up. Sometimes you have to keep on going to the top. Mentors, sponsors, coaches, advocates, all of those are key to success, whether you're in the military or not. Now, because Cynthia is an HR person, both in the Navy and in NSA, she says, document it, write it down. You better write it down. You better have a log. You better keep track of it. And then I think the next one is very important because it goes to, is the organization there for me or not? Have a little faith. Keep calm. Certainly, and I'm going to channel one of my favorite mentors and coaches, longtime friend. I was his XO, he was my CO, Mark Ferguson. I would get mad about something. And he'd look at me and smile and says, Sink, don't wrestle with a pig. because you both get dirty and the pig likes it. And he used that comment time and time again with me. But it has to, don't let your words get out in front of your brain, okay? And don't let this one draw you down. And try to be as non-emotional to how you present the case to your senior leadership, okay? Explain it to them. Put it in simple terms. Explain where you're coming from and why this matters and what the impact is. But try to do it in a non-emotional way. Those are just some of the things that Cynthia shared. And I think that's a pretty good checklist to keep in your back pocket. I'm gonna finish up with some do's and don'ts. And this comes from an article, again, that I Googled after, my search of the 5 million things that came up when I started doing my research for here, about surviving and thriving in a toxic leadership environment in the military. Tell the people that are doing well why they're important. Now, I'm going to make him feel a little taken aback, and I hope it's okay. But I've always told Admiral Richardson this. He and I served on the hardest thing that I ever did in my Navy career. That was sitting on the board. He was the president. I was one of the board members for the early retirement board. And we're looking at 200, 300, I can't remember. It was a huge number of officers. Basically all of whom had done everything the Navy had asked them to do. But because we were mandated, our board was mandated to tell folks, some of them who were in command, many of them who are friends of ours and shipmates of ours. Shipmate, I'm afraid it's time to go home. And it's not because you did anything wrong. The way that he handled that environment and that tough challenge in an ethical, logical, non-emotional way, but compassionate way, I will never forget. I'll never forget. And I don't mind praising him in public because of that. Praise good leaders when they've done something. It reinforces them to keep on doing it. Don't give up. All right. I had a CO, Bill Snyder. Now, Bill Snyder is a break glass in time of war type of guy. And he couldn't handle the Navy of today. I'm telling you that. One of the best cruiser CEOs of all time. I said this to his face. Okay. He knows it's true. One day, his chief engineer, and it is one of these days after he had told me and all the other department heads that we had no mamas and that we were the worst department heads that ever sailed the briny deep. Okay, we left out, and this time he slammed the door, and I was so mad and frustrated. Lieutenant Harris was. I turned around, I knocked on the door, and I said, and he opened the door. What do you want? Sir, I don't know if I can do anything right. He said, what do you mean? I said, well, look, my guys hadn't done anything that wrong this week, but this other son of a gun, other lieutenant, he's dropping missiles on the damn forecastle, and this other guy, he's losing class from. He didn't say jack to them. He looks at me and says, I don't beat dead horses. What the hell does that mean? Okay, I thought in the back of my head, didn't say it out loud. And he finally said, look, as long as you keep, as long as I'm beating you, that means that I have hope for you to get better. That's weird. But over time, I heard others say similar things. Was, the great thing about Sinclair wasn't that he was a great leader or the best service warfare officer or what have you. I was one of the best action officers. That's another story, and that's a shameful thing to say. But I never gave up. You don't give up. You keep on punching. Back to Cynthia's list about communicating in a non-emotional way and in a professional way. Communicate with respect and professionalism. You got to respect the rank. You got to respect the position somebody's in. You may not agree with it. You may not like it. But you should not let that dictate how you respond. the command climate surveys. I know Emily and I were talking about that, and you can get slammed in those things. I've been slammed in them before too. But if you can go back to the communicate point and communicate back to crew, hey, I understand this is what are your concerns. Here's how I perceive things and why these things are being done. And these things are not being done. It goes a long way, a long way. So you can use even a negative command climate survey for a positive action. Keeping your bearing, to me, that's again more like, don't disrespect the position, communicate, and use every lesson you can from good leaders, toxic leaders, bad leaders, what have you, to build what type of leader you're going to be. When I went from being an engineering division officer and a deck division officer to being a department head, and I was going to be a chief engineer, I said, okay, well, what's a chief engineer like? Well, they chain smoke. They're always cursing. They're yelling all the time because everybody's after them. Everybody's on their back. Okay, and they can't trust any of them. They're all running around with unsafety checked electronics and firefighting equipment that hasn't been PMS right. That's what, every chief engineer I met was like, well, can I be that way? Well, that's not really your way. So you got to be yourself, take those lessons, and then try to become the best leader you can based on the situation you're in. And remember, as a little line there, and you've all known it, you've heard it 1,000 times, whatever doesn't kill you makes you stronger. The testing by the fire makes you tougher. So I think that's it. I think that's the end of my presentation, and let's go to questions, snide remarks. I can take anything. I'm a surface warfare officer, so that means that the only thing darker than my shoes is my heart. I have no vulnerable points, okay, no buttons that you can press. So let's have it. Over.
I love it. Thank you so much, Admiral Harris. So I'll take a moment and kind of look and see if anyone puts anything in chat for me to bring up to the whole group. But this has been generally the time that we break out into small groups, and I'm putting you into groups of 3 or 4. And if you all, I'll just take a look right now at your group chat. You'll see that when you go into your room, you're going to want to go alphabetically by name. So just look around, go by first name, and go ahead and start. And each person share, kind of who you are. And the question that we're teeing up for you here today is, what is one way you've come out stronger after being in a toxic leader environment? So if you're willing to share that story, I think everyone seemed to have said they had been in a toxic leader environment. So I don't think we have a lack there of examples. So really the best part of this is how our moderator tees us up, and guest lecturer gives us some meat to talk about. So Admiral Harris, thank you so much for teeing this up. You also are in a breakout room. It's 10 minutes and we'll come back, and this is perfect. We'll have plenty of time to share. So any questions before you go to the breakout rooms, just either come off mute or I'll look in chat. All right, I'm looking in chat now. So see you all in about 10 minutes. Hi, Stacy. Good to see you. Wait, good to see you. Okay, it looks like you're on mute. I don't know if I got you. Did you not get assigned a room? Okay.
I don't think so. That's why I'm like, I came in late. I was in the middle of a critique. Yay, go nukes.
Okay,
So,
go nukes. So I could either assign you one, or you and I could just hang out, girl.
Let's hang out. Is that okay? Can we do that? Can we, my location, my job, my professional ability.
So I love this mistake because I don't have my person helping me. So I usually spend 10 minutes by myself. So let me at least just set a timer. So I can at least in 10 minutes, tell everybody. And I would much rather spend it with you. Is that okay?
Yes, please. I mean, I know we're recording, but.
I think, that's right. I need to tell him to stop recording. Let's see, pause. All right, welcome back everyone from our breakout sessions. I apologize to those of you that I cut off in the middle. I hope you got names, and if you'd like, I can happy to connect you all later. This is a meaty topic, and I know some of you probably had some tough stories that might come up for you. So appreciate your willingness to share. That is the real takeaway here, is that we're connecting with each other while professionally developing. Stacy was in my group. We were both kind of left out at the end. So it was nice to be able to catch up with an old shipmate who's leaving one command, head to the next. So really great to connect with you, Stacy. Does anyone want to share something that came out? Go ahead and just come off mute and maybe say one thing that you learned from somebody else in your group.
Hey, Emily, I could go.
Please.
So I had Jeff and I in our group, and we both related to some similarities in some toxic leaders that we've worked for. And it was really the toxic leader was so afraid, and it was really all about fear. And it's so tragic when you really think about this person who is so afraid and they can't show that vulnerability. And so they try to hide, through their toxicity. And it just makes everything worse, where if they were able to be vulnerable, people would probably, especially when in our culture, I think in the Navy, where the person in charge, the commanding officer, we want to support and help and see that person successful, because they are so linked to the command success and the identity. And so it's like a real tragedy when you have that happen. But it was like, I think we both settled on fear being a real calculus there.
Oh my gosh, Jean Marie, thanks for sharing that. Stacy and I ended up the same thing. We ended up talking, having both been in command, about kind of the fear of it, how he feels to have someone think you're a toxic leader, and how we can reach out, how we can not have people think that ourselves, and how we can reach out to those who find themselves resorting to toxic behaviors. Wow, I love how this group is turning on its head. Okay, anyone else want to share?
I've got one, even though I can't beat Jean Marie to microphone.
Go ahead.
So in our group with Bree, Lena, and Sandy, 2 points that I took away that were pretty interesting. The first one was that sometimes when you have a toxic leader, that actually strengthens your faith in the organization as far as a reason for being there, and wanting to stay in the profession you're in. In a sense, you walk away stronger with that faith in the organization. And then the second piece was Sandy mentioned that after a toxic leadership situation, it really lit a fire underneath her to aim farther along in her career to make sure that she could surpass and do a better job than her current leader. So in that sense, it was a motivator to keep pushing and get to the point where they had the opportunity to prove that they could do a better job in that same role. Over.
Oh, that's awesome, Jessica. Thank you so much. Yeah, it can be a motivator, right? For us to be like, okay, that's what I don't want. We learn as much from our leaders by their behavior to emulate as to what not to do, right? Oh, that's so helpful. And I saw a shout out in the audience. We've learned, one good way to be stronger from toxic leaders is to praise those who are good. We saw Admiral Harris do that for Admiral Richardson, and I see Abram has done that for Jean Marie. So it's really just great to see this community building here, that exact behavior. Lori, I see you've written in the chat. Anything you want to share?
I find my unmute button. There we go. Sorry. No, I was echoing the earlier comment from Jean Marie, right? As I've gotten space from when I was in an environment like that, I really look back and I look at those people, at the leaders that were so hostile. And I just think they were insecurity, right? The fear. To me, I define it as insecurity. And one of the two I knew very, very well. And of the one that I knew very, very well, it was just, I saw that insecurity. And I actually tried a couple of times to kind of bust through that and kind of like point out to this person, he really was incredibly hardworking and very smart and competent. And I was just like, why are you being such a jerk, right? And it just didn't stick. That was the conversation part of the bullet list of things to try. I felt like I tried all of those. Those were the conversations, right? Just didn't stick. And that was frustrating, right? Because I thought if you could let go of your insecurity that makes you rear up, right? That makes you bite at people, makes you want to control and micromanage and be the most important person in the room, you'd be great. And it didn't work. So
sometimes it doesn't work. Yeah, you just try. It's people at the end.
Mm-hmm.
Matt, I see you put something in the chat. Can you tell us what this, if we were to link on that, what that program
Sure.
is about?
Sure. I did a study last year that, Emily, you're aware of, and I was able to talk to the Naval Academy, the Stockdale Center for Ethical Leadership, and I hooked them up with the Army, and they started this new battalion command assessment program about a couple years ago, and it was still going through its maturation cycle, but I think it's hit its stride so far. And what they've done, and it wasn't by design, it was by accident, Emily, is they did a retroactive climate survey of your 03 kind of time and maybe your 01, 02 time. And they said, would you work with this guy or gal again? And that would go up to your battalion command board. And it was kind of interesting. And that was kind of a true colors of, you can't hide from that. So it was very interesting. It wasn't by design to weed out toxic leaders, but the guys who wrote the program told me that was a unintended outcome, which was very interesting. The Navy, I believe, is trying to mimic this with, I think it's called NLAP. I'm not a Navy guy, but they're trying to mimic this process as well. So I thought it was very interesting. It's mentioned in there at the very bottom. It's not going to go and say what I just said, but it's kind of ingrained in there. You can read into it. Pretty interesting.
Is the logic behind it that somebody doesn't change? Like maybe I might have been a bad leader back then, but I'm better now. Like I would hope that. I mean, I shared with you my XO days, how much that struck me to have that feedback anonymously in my command climate survey, and my attempt to not let that happen again. I would hate to be held accountable.
No, I don't think it was that. I think is that person improving. I think is from their stepping, moving up the ladder. I think was it. Again, it wasn't by design. That's the main point. It was for another reason they did this. But they ended up seeing the results saying, hey, we've actually gotten rid of some toxic leaders.
Fascinating.
Yeah.
Corto, looks like you have some comments on that, ma'am, to share maybe?
Oh, I was just going to say, yes, I concur with Matt's note. The Navy is looking to expand it. I know someone made a comment about Naval Special Warfare doing an iteration of that too. And if you had the opportunity to see CNP Now's congressional testimony this week, he talked a little bit about that. There was some discussion about it at the HASC session.
Yeah, this is certainly a hot topic. And it doesn't seem, as Admiral Harris showed us, it's a historical one. It's nothing new, and certainly maybe more often in the military. Excellent. Admiral Harris, any feedback from your group and things that came up with you in your conversations in the chat room, sir?
Well, we had a wonderful conversation. It seems that the department head journey always seems to be the one that brings up the toxicity in any environment. So I think being mindful of that and toughening people for that is probably a worthwhile endeavor. Also, and I like how Master Chief Gray put it about not just a documentation, but just aggressively, working leadership issues, inside of your command. So there's a lot of good conversation, and I think that's the key. That's why these organizations like this exist, is to provide an environment to have these type of discussions, let you know you're not alone, and to help you think through the challenges that are going to come.
So great. And it's so great that you got to meet my Master Chief Gray, who was my first chief when I was Lieutenant J.G. Clauser on Lincoln for my first nuke tour. It's so great to see you, Master Chief, and great to have a reunion recently. We were at SNA together. So fantastic.
Hey,
really
Emily, can I did have a question because I still kind of struggle with this and how I handled it. When I was XO, the CO, I really had a difficult I think he was definitely a toxic leader. And one of the things that I still question to this day, because you think about what are we taught? We're taught as long as it's legal, moral, and ethical. But that's those gray areas, legality is pretty clear cut. But there's gray there, and it can be difficult to navigate. You can certainly confront the leader, but at what point, I always struggled with at what point do you take it outside the lifelines? And I was curious if some of our more senior folks on the line had experience with that or reflections on that.
Can you restate the question? Because I think I got an answer for you, but restate it, please.
I'm happy to restate it too, Jim. Just to kind of get another way to say it is when do you take it outside the lifelines? When you feel like you're working for a toxic leader and you think, grin and bear it, take notes for later, write about it and suffer in silence. When do you stop suffering in silence? When do you actually go to your Commodore if you're the XO for a captain? At what point is your break? Do you say this needs to get moved? We can't wait for the end of the tour.
Well, Bronny Deep came off mute, so I defer to CNO.
Sink, I'm all ears.
No, you came off mute first.
All right. My experience is that it's a very difficult question. Jean Marie, you've hit on such a deep question, right? And it involves a lot of psychology, because I think that we are all pre-wired to have tremendous loyalty to the command, to the leadership of the command. And so what I've found is that to the benefit of nobody, people wait far too long before they say something. And so I would say that the first things you want to say are probably not outside the command, right? There's plenty of channels inside the command. And so if you're a department head and it's the CO who's the toxic leader, well, there's the executive officer who is available to have this conversation. There's the command master chief of the boat in my tribe to have this conversation, right? So there are other members of the triad that can, and if you're a division officer and it's a department head or whatever, there's always somebody in the command that can be influential, perhaps reach that person and give them every chance that you can possibly give them to correct their behavior, right? And sometimes you have to think a little bit harder, not approach it directly like, hey, I think you're just insecure and stop being insecure, but what might be making them, feel like they don't have full control of their situation and enhance their sense of control, right? So take action probably sooner than we'd be inclined to do that. Take action first inside the command, kind of adopt that shoulder to shoulder geometry that makes it feel like, hey, we're all trying to solve this problem together, right? Now, after all of that, then I would say that if you're anybody, let's just say it's the captain. If you're anybody else besides the XO, it's probably, he's the person, he or she is the person you should talk to, because if you need to go to the Commodore, it's probably the executive officers that should have that conversation. And if you and the XO have a disagreement, then, then you've got to, there are a number of channels that Sink talked about in terms of being able to do this. But I think that, my advice would be act earlier than we generally tend to do. Act within the lifelines as much as you can, and only after you've exhausted those possibilities, there are, I always was a fan of people who stayed inside the chain of command until there were just sort of no more options there. And then, of course, we have things like the IG and other things that you can use. So I think, I hope that provided some form of an answer to you, Jean Marie. But we tend to wait too long before we take the first steps, right? And it exacerbates, the situation gets worse with time like that. And the leader doesn't benefit from it, and neither do all of the followers who are suffering.
I think Rachel's got her hand up next, Emily.
Perfect. Thanks, Admiral. Go ahead, Rachel.
So I wouldn't disagree with anything you said, Admiral, but I would also say it doesn't always work. And trying to solve things at the lowest level and go to the appropriate places and then going outside the lifelines. All great advice. For Jean Marie's question, I would say seek out someone who's been through it before, and seek me out if you want, because I tried all of that. And it wasn't in the Navy, but it crosses over into the Navy. And as I was telling my breakout group, at one point I had a 2-star admiral on the ring a couple of years ago tell me never come back to his office because he didn't want to hear it. And I've gotten kicked in the face for trying to handle things at the lowest level and then going, professionally up and up and up. And I'll also put out there, I need help. And I've been told 2 stars not high enough to make a difference in the problems I've got. So if anyone's on the line today and is willing to be a bystander and ally for me, I would absolutely appreciate it.
Rachel, I think I
I
volunteered to be your bystander last time you told this story, and I still maintain that. And just to make clear, I'm actually not a fan of the lowest level approach, right? Because because that's where things stay, right? Seek the highest level inside the chain of command that can have influence on this. And then just to your point, Rachel, sometimes that doesn't work, and I would say that you got to go outside. I stand ready to be your advocate.
I appreciate that. I'm going to put my email in the chat because I'm trying to figure out how to reach you. And if anyone wants to reach me for advice on how to navigate this, I'm willing to help anyone else.
And Emily, I don't know if you see, but you got John Cordell, then Ashley Merriman have got their hands up.
Okay, I just would like to offer you, Admiral Harris, a chance to kind of close out and then let people log off if they want, and then we'll stick around for the after party because that's kind of what I do at the top of the hour. Or I could even just wrap it up right now and say people are willing to let the competition go, but if you would like to log off, it is the top of the hour. And I generally stop recording at the hour as well because people kind of get a little bit more sensitive topics. So thank you everyone for showing up today and for sharing with each other the different ways that we can overcome how to be in toxic environments. So thank you very much. And with that, I'll go ahead over to you, Captain Cordell. Go ahead, John.